Welcome to Hey Coach Tony, the top broadcast of youth sports, where you get to call in and give your opinion. Call 855-HEY-COACH. That's 855-439-2622. Give your opinion. And now here's your host, Tony Fiorino.
Hey, happy Saturday, everybody. Bang the drum. Hold the phone. The sun did indeed come out today. Welcome to Hey Coach Tony. Yep, that's right, John. Hold the phone. I'm your host, Tony Fiorino. As you know, each week here on Hey Coach Tony, we hit the hottest topics in youth sports. And as always, we want to hear what you guys have to say. So we've opened up the studio lines at 855-HEY-COACH. That's 855-439-2622. All right, this week, with it being Mother's Day weekend, I thought it only appropriate that we honor the beautiful ladies in our lives by celebrating the birthday of Title IX. Now, for those of you who don't know what Title IX is, it's basically the most significant advancement for gender equality in the history of scholastic sports. In a nutshell, Title IX states that schools must create equal opportunities for as many equal opportunities for women as they do for men. Seems simple enough, right? But as you'll learn throughout this hour, what seems so simple many times is not. There have been some significant bumps in the road along the way for Title IX, and quite frankly, some people think there are plenty of bumps still ahead for us. There's been a lot of talk over the past few years specifically about Title IX and gender equality in general, but I'm going to bet that most of you don't really know that much at all about Title IX. In fact, to start the show off this week, let's play a really quick game of Hey Coach Tony's $99,000 answer. This will be a really quick one because there are only two questions for you guys this week, only two of them. I'll ask the questions now, and then the first callers to get with us with the correct answers will get their choice of a Hey Coach Tony t-shirt or a Hey Coach Tony coffee mug. The number here in the studio is 855-HEY-COACH. All right, first question. In what year was Title IX signed into law? And these are multiple choice questions. So, yes, in what year was Title IX signed into law? Was it A, 1959, B, 1967, C, 1972, or D, 1985? 855-HEY-COACH is the number. Now, the second question. How many times do the words athletics and or sports appear in the original bill that became Title IX? How many times do the words athletics and or sports appear in the original bill? A, more than 50 times. B, between 25 and 50 times. C, between 1 and 25 times. Or D, 0. Again, we're looking for how many times the words athletics and or sports appear in Title IX, the most significant advancement in women's sports in history. Studio lines again are open at 855-HEY-COACH. It's 855-439-2622. Adam is going to be dealing with, again, a ridiculously slow computer today. He's going to be sucking it up for us and doing his best to field your calls. So take it easy on him when you call in. All right, so the first caller at 855-HEY-COACH to get either of these questions correctly gets a mug or a shirt. But while we're waiting for your calls, speaking of gender equality, I came across a story that must have been dated, 1873. Because when you hear this, you just won't believe it. Get this. A high school baseball team in Arizona that worked all season long to reach the state championship game just forfeited their chance to play for the state title. Why on earth would a team do this? Well, because its opponent in the state final game has a girl playing second base. You heard me right. And I did indeed check the date to see if this was a story from the Middle Ages, but it is true. Talk about taking my show on Title IX and giving it a pimp hand slap to the face. I've never heard it before, but it's true. Our Lady of Sorrows Academy, and sorrows indeed, Our Lady of Sorrows Academy decided to forfeit its shot at the state championship rather than simply face off against Mesa Prep Academy, because their second baseman is no baseman. It's a base woman. It's a young lady by the name of Paige Saltzback. Now, we've been told that competing against a team featuring a girl would be, quote, a violation of the school's mission to teach boys and girls separately. You heard me correctly. The mission is to teach boys and girls separately. Apparently, the separation of the sexes is a key guideline of the Society of St. Pius X, which is a separatist branch of the Catholic Church, and Our Lady of Sorrows is apparently a part of that society. Newsflash for Our Lady of Sorrows and the people in the Society of St. Pius X, they also have things like indoor plumbing. That is all the new rave. You may want to check it out. Now, and by the way, you want to chime in on this, then by all means, give me a call at 855-HEY-COACH. That's 855-439-2622. My understanding from the story is that this forfeit really comes as no surprise. Turns out Paige, this young lady, sat out the two previous games between these two schools and was actually rather respectful of Our Lady of Sorrows' religious beliefs. But she said no way. When it came time to for the championship game, the state championship game, she just simply said no way. Would love to get your thoughts on this. And in fact, we got a couple of posts up on the Facebook page, which is at www.heycoachtony.com. Mike chimed in with, women should be allowed to become ordained priests or play second base for their high school baseball team. What a horrible message to send to all the young ladies who attend OLSS. I agree with the sentiment, Mike. My guess is that, and I don't know this for sure if somebody does call us, I believe Our Lady of Sorrows is an all-boys school. I would have to believe it was an all-boys school. If it's not, then these guys are just idiots. And I'm on the record with that one. We also got another post in from Greg. I like this one. He said, if there's supposed to be separation of the sexes, then why are boys attending Our Lady of Sorrows Academy? Good for you, Greg. Strike a one to the heart of male chauvinist pigs everywhere. Like I said, if you have any thoughts on this particular story, by all means, give us a call in the studio at 855-HEY-COACH. And don't forget about the two trivia questions that are now floating out there in cyberspace. The first one is, what year was Title IX signed into law? Was it 1959, 1967, 1972, or 1985? Second question is, how many times do the words sports and or athletics appear in the original Title IX verbiage? More than 50, 25 to 50, 1 to 25, or 0. 855-HEY-COACH. All right, back to the topic at hand. Happy birthday, Title IX. I don't know how else to say it. As the father of two beautiful and athletic girls, I am personally forever grateful to the people who first put Title IX in motion. In my opinion, in order to truly give Title IX the respect it deserves, I think it's important to look back on the evolution of Title IX and go look back on some important dates in the evolution of gender equality in sports. If you have any reactions to any of the comments or the timeline that I'm going to walk through, just give us a call at 855-HEY-COACH. We're going to turn the clock back to the year 1967. 1967. Not only was that the year that Coach Tony was born, just gave away my age, it was also a year that President Johnson signed what was known at the time as Executive Order 11375. This executive order prohibited federal contractors from employment practices that discriminated on the basis of gender. Why is this important? Well, it's important because Executive Order 11375 is really what laid the groundwork for all future gender equity-based legislation, including, guess what, Title IX. You want to know another reason why it's important? Well, if you were paying attention, it also just eliminated one of the four choices for the first trivia question. So now the odds of you knuckleheads getting this one right just skyrocketed from 25% to 33%. So 1967 is officially off the table. All right. Let's fast forward. We're going to fast forward to 1972. In 1972, this was a milestone indeed. A young lady named Maria Pepe. She pushed open and held open the door for young ladies in baseball forever. If the name sounds familiar, Maria Pepe was a shy and reserved young lady. She mustered up the courage to enroll in Little League baseball, which back in 1972, this was basically unheard of. Now, what's important to note here is that she had the support of her coach, her parents, and even her teammates. Unfortunately, opposing players and parents and coaches were not so accommodating. Even Little League itself, one of the most, if not the most, heralded youth sports organization in the world, in history, went so far as to threaten the town of Hoboken, New Jersey, with revoking its Little League charter if they didn't remove Maria Pepe from their roster. Now, Maria's coach was a guy named Jimmy Farina. And give this guy some credit. He refused to remove Maria from the roster. But here's where I think the story's cool. This young lady, remarkable young lady, worrying that she might be doing some harm to her teammates, volunteered to resign from Little League. Pretty gutsy move for a little girl, 12 years old. Well, at that point, the National Organization of Women stepped in, and they filed a landmark lawsuit on her behalf, and they won. Now, the downside here, however, the final decision didn't come down until a year later when Maria Pepe was 13 years old, and at that point, Little League ended at 12 years old. So while she won her landmark lawsuit, she was unable to take advantage of it and to continue to play baseball, but she did pave the way for many, many young women since that point. Now, amid several additional lawsuits at the time, Little League did finally step out of the dark ages and decided to finally amend their bylaws to allow the inclusion of girls. What I thought was interesting, Coach Tony did a lot of research this week. Believe it or not, Maria Pepe was not the first girl to play Little League baseball. That distinction belongs to a young lady by the name of Katherine Johnson, who back in 1950 decided to tuck her hair underneath her baseball cap. She used a nickname and basically posed as a boy to try out for a Little League team up in Corning, New York. And back in those days, yes, there were cuts in Little League, so you had to try out and make the team. And anyway, she made the team. Immediately after making the team, she revealed her gender to her manager. And that sounds like it could be very promiscuous statements. She basically just told the guy she's a girl. Let's put this in perspective. The manager in the league actually allowed her to play, considering it a novelty, even though it was illegal under the bylaws of Little League at the time. Oh, Adam, any idea what else happened that year, 1972?
I don't know. Fill me in.
All right. Short answer. That was and you still don't get a mug. It was in 1972.
Wait, is that when Title IX was signed?
Oh, wait. You sure? Yeah. It was in 1972 that President Richard Nixon signed into law Title IX of the Education Amendments Act.
I got it.
All right, well, now you sure you got it. I just told you. But basically, it prohibited prohibited discrimination on the basis of sex for all educational programs or activities that receive funding from the federal government. Now, the law, which was designed to increase educational opportunities for women, it went into effect in July of that year. And, I almost slipped up. All right, you know what? I want to skip ahead 1 year. Let's go to 1973. This one's pretty cool. And, Adam, I hate to call you out. What year were you born?
88.
Oh, Jesus. You serious? Oh, my God.
Yeah.
All right, I was going to ask if you were alive for this. You certainly don't remember then because it is 1973 right now. In the fall of 1973, one of the most highly emotional and nationally spotlighted gender-related sports issues took center stage. I guess I'm hesitant now because maybe only the grandparents and I are the ones that will remember this one. There was a guy by the name of Bobby Riggs. Bobby Riggs, an arrogant, shameless, and at the time 55-year-old outspoken male chauvinist and hustler, well-known gambler and hustler, well past his prime as a tennis player, challenged Billie Jean King, the then 29-year-old reigning Wimbledon champion, to a tennis match. Now, this in and of itself was more than newsworthy, but what made this so heated and so emotional for women around the world is that earlier that summer, Riggs challenged another top female player by the name of Margaret Court. Now, if you ever saw any stories about Bobby Riggs, you know that this guy was a master at intimidation. And if you're an Odd Couples fan like me and you watch the marathon every New Year's, 2 words, if you think Bobby Riggs, 2 words keep repeating in your mind because Bobby Riggs appeared on an episode of The Odd Couple. What are those 2 words? Psychological pressure. Bottom line, Riggs was a genius at mind games. And Margaret Court, she just completely caved under the mental barrage that Riggs laid on her, and she was literally paralyzed with fear to the point where she could barely hit a ball. So needless to say, Riggs won. Did he finally show some sympathy after reducing this woman to a sniveling puddle of snot and tears? Hardly. As a matter of fact, when we get back, I'm going to go to a quick break. When we get back, I'm going to walk you through the rest of this story, and if any of you have some fond memories of Bobby Riggs, either on the court with Billie Jean King or Margaret Court or on The Odd Couple, give us a call in the studio at 855-HEY-COACH. Still have a trivia question out there highlighting the number of times the word sports appears in the original version of Title IX, but we do have to get to a break. You're listening to Hey Coach Tony. Stick around. I'll be right back.
Coach Tony.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. You're listening to Hey Coach Tony every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. on ESPN Radio, on the air, live online at heycoachtony.ihigh.com. And you can always catch the past episodes up on YouTube by looking for Hey Coach Tony on ESPN Radio. Well, this morning we are wishing a fond happy birthday, and as we have now revealed, we have now identified the 40th birthday of Title IX, the most significant advancement for women and gender equality in sports. And speaking of gender equality, before the break we started talking about, back in the 70s, one of the most highly touted sporting events, not just, gender-based sporting events. Bobby Riggs decided to challenge Billie Jean King to a tennis match. Billie Jean King at the time was, I believe, 29 or 25, something like that. 29. And she was the reigning Wimbledon champion. Riggs was an outspoken 55-year-old male chauvinist who was a master at mind games. Riggs previously took a woman by the name of Margaret Court, who was a top player in the world at the time, and absolutely disgraced her. Got inside her head to the point, like an earwig, where this woman couldn't even play. And after beating her down physically and mentally and reducing her to this puddle of tears and snot, did Riggs show any remorse? No way. After he won, he gloated and just basically decided to proclaim himself the champion of women's tennis. So, fast forward a little bit, when Billie Jean King agreed to a winner-take-all showdown with Riggs, it immediately became a pre-made and pre-marketed documentary on gender equality, not only in sports, but in general. It was hyped up like nothing before or since. It was like a boxing match. It took place in the Houston Astrodome, which, Adam, do you remember the Houston Astrodome?
Of course.
Well, don't say of course. I think you were born after it was knocked down, apparently, I'm learning. We learned today.
I believe it's still there. I don't think they ever knocked it down.
Oh, you know what? You may be right. Anyway, all right. Well, way to steal my thunder. All right. Well, Title IX turned 40. Adam turned, I think, 13. All right. Anyway, the Houston Astrodome at the time was the most iconic sports arena in the world. In fact, artificial turf was originally called AstroTurf for that reason. Anyway, this event took place in the Astrodome, and it was announced by legendary Howard Cosell. So after weeks of build-up and trash talk, Riggs arrived onto the court seated in a rickshaw that was led by a group of smoking hot, let's call them well-endowed models that he referred to as Bobby's bosom buddies. This guy was a class act. Now, not to be outdone, Billie Jean King was carried in by a team of men dressed as slaves as if she were Queen of the Nile herself. So this became quite a bit of fanfare. Television audience. Now, this is 1973. Adam, you know what? Just take a guess. What do you think the television audience was for an event like this back in 1973?
You want it like in millions or?
Well, you know, it's 1973. You want to use millions? Go ahead.
I'll say it was around, I would say 50 million.
Are you kidding me? Are you on Google?
No, it was a random guess.
Random guess, right on the money, dude. 50 million.
All right, woo.
1973, 50 million was unheard of. The only event that overshadowed it was the Super Bowl, Super Bowl 7, in terms of viewership. The only event globally that beat this thing. Well, anyway, why was it so cool that Billie Jean King agreed to this? Think about it. At least as far as I'm concerned, she had nothing at all to gain that night. If she lost, it would have been beyond humiliating, and she would have let down an entire half of the world's population. How's that for a burden to carry on your shoulders? Now, flip it around. If she beat a man basically twice her age, what would that prove? Well, if you ever watched, and I did, there were several very well done interviews and documentaries on Billie Jean King, and they're all great. Why did she do it? Well, in her own words, and I love this statement, this shows you what a champion she was. And her quote is, "It was life and death. Losing wasn't an option." I love that. And the bottom line is Billie Jean King came out of the match like a champ, both on the court and, more importantly, in the court of public opinion. What people in general, not just women, loved about this wasn't that she destroyed Bobby Riggs. I think she won 6-4, 6-3, 6-3. It was that she had also stood up to his bullying and his psychological bashing and did so with pride and dignity. And in the process, most people actually forget this part, she inspired women on a global scale. Still to this day, one of my favorite stories. You go, girl. All right, we're going to move on. You think Title IX is all about cool, inspiring stories? Well, guess again, because we're going to fast forward just 1 year from this historic event. Not everybody thought that Title IX was a good idea. In fact, some people thought that it posed a threat to some male sports. In fact, in Texas, Republican Senator John Tower and Texas football coach and AD Darrell Royal plotted a little bit of a revolution against Title IX because they were worried about some potential negative impacts on revenue-producing sports, specifically men's basketball and football. They masterminded a document known as the Tower Amendment, which would basically keep Title IX in place but exempt football and men's basketball from Title IX compliance. Now, surely something as ridiculous as this, the NCAA is going to step in and stand up for this, correct? Well, wrong. In fact, NCAA executive director at the time, a guy named Walter Byers, he chimed in. For the record, his only input on this was a quote. And the quote was, "Impending doom is around the corner," in reference to Title IX. Great job, guy. Well, although lobbyists eventually got this in front of President Gerald Ford, you even know who President Gerald Ford is, Adam?
I do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. All right. You still have to study social studies in school. That's right.
Right.
Okay. Well, even though they got it in front of President Ford, the Tower Amendment was defeated. And instead, a rider that was offered by Senator Jacob Javits of New York directed regulations that made, and I'll quote, "reasonable provisions considering the nature of particular sports." By the way, this rider mentions the word sports. So I want to make note of an email we got from Jesse in Farmington, who guessed on our trivia question the word sports and or athletics appears, quote, more than 50 times. Well, I can tell you that is incorrect. So again, your odds of winning the Hey Coach Tony mug just skyrocketed from 25 to 33%. The remaining answers are, did the word sports and or athletics appear between 1 and 25 times, 25 to 50 times, or 0 times? If you have a guess, give me a call in the studio at 855-HEY-COACH. All right. There's been a lot of legal hullabaloo around Title IX over the years, and in fact, I was curious about when the legal battles really started to kick in. Answer is, well, 1976, as we celebrated the bicentennial of our country, the NCAA, of all people. The first significant lawsuit didn't come from a girl who wanted to play and was discriminated against. It wasn't from the parent of some kid crying boo-hoo. The NCAA filed a lawsuit challenging the legality of Title IX. The claim was that no athletic programs received direct federal funds, and that was the verbiage in the original document. Programs receiving direct federal funds had to offer equal opportunities to men and women. Now, whether this is true or not, that none of the sports receive direct federal funding, I don't know. And quite frankly, I think it's irrelevant because the suit is pretty quickly dismissed. But something else really cool happens that year. And when I say cool, this one's for the men in the audience. On a cold March day that year, 1976, a young lady by the name of Christine Ernst, the captain of the Yale women's rowing team, and 18 of her teammates marched into the office of Joni Barnett, the director of women's sports at Yale, and made a bold political statement that would send shockwaves throughout the country. Turns out the female rowers at Yale had become fed up with waiting on the bus, freezing their butts off every day after practice, while the male rowers took warm showers. What's more, even after finishing second and third in the national championships the previous 2 years, these young ladies were still rowing in pinged-up old boats, while the men's equipment was state-of-the-art each year. So without an appointment, they entered, without announcement or appointment, they entered Barnett's office and brought with them a reporter for the New York Times and a photographer. When Barnett stood up to see what was going on, all 19 of these women stripped down butt naked. And emboldened on their chest and backs were written the words, Title IX. That is a really gutsy move for a bunch of college ladies. But the political ramifications for Yale quickly became apparent. While it took Yale until 1969 to even allow women admitted into their school, they now had to comply with federal law. So stripping down butt naked, guess what? It resulted in showers for the women being built later that spring. And you know what? An interesting side note, and this is the feel good for this story. That summer, Christine Ernst and one of her teammates from Yale, Ann Warner, represented the United States at the very first Olympics to include women's rowing. You go, girl. All right, listen, if you have anything to add to any of these stories, just give us a call in the studio at 855-HEY-COACH. That's 855-439-2622. If you have an answer to the trivia question and how many times the word athletics and or sports appear in the original documentation of Title IX, give us a call and you'll get yourself a coffee mug or a T-shirt. You're listening to Hey Coach Tony. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Coach Tony.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. You're listening to Hey Coach Tony on ESPN Radio. And I forgot to say this morning, whether you're listening on the air, online, at home, or on YouTube, thanks. I really do appreciate you guys listening in. Now, I'm trying my best to get ready and be respectful and honor Mother's Day. But I can't. You know why? Because Mrs. Hey Coach Tony right now, I guess she doesn't realize that I have this little thing I do on Saturday mornings, a radio show, and I'm getting barraged on Facebook, heckled about something that's happening at the house. Mrs. Hey, could you lighten up? Could you just be respectful of the fact that I'm trying to put on a show here? Oh, my God. For Mother's Day, you're going to read about me killing my wife. All right. We're talking Title IX this morning, and we're talking about the evolution of gender equality in sports. And we're at a timeline, we're at a point where we just left 1976, the first real legitimate lawsuit. The first of the legal battles begins, and it came from no one else but the NCAA itself. And we also talked about how a group of young rowers from Yale decided to strip down naked and break a little glass and change some rules. And we always love it when a woman strips down naked. How's that for Mother's Day weekend? All right, we're going to move ahead to the school year of 1981-82. Why are we doing that? Well, it's significant because that year, the NCAA, for the first time ever, crowned Division I national champions in women's cross country, field hockey, volleyball, swimming, basketball, golf, gymnastics, tennis, outdoor track, and softball. That was, I would say, probably the most significant stride that Title IX took, at least in terms of the NCAA. So if you went to college after 1982, or Adam, I believe, was that when you were born? Was that the year?
88.
80.
So I was
Are you kidding me?
I was not even close.
Dude, I graduated college in 89. All right, I'm not going to ask you anymore because this is really pathetic. All right, anyway, now, we talked about some of the lawsuits. If you think Title IX did not experience any legal setbacks, well, guess again, because now we're going to move forward to 84. In the most significant setback in the history of Title IX, the Supreme Court ruled in Grove City College that Title IX applied only to programs within an institution that did indeed receive direct federal funding, thereby excluding most athletic programs from its jurisdiction. Now, in response to this, many schools basically threw a little book-burning party. They cut an entire slew of recently added women's teams because now they no longer needed to have them. The Office for Civil Rights was forced to cancel 23 separate ongoing investigations. I mean, talk about a setback, that is ridiculous. 23 investigations just turned off and an entire slew of recently added women's sports. We were all thrown back into the Stone Ages back in 1984. All right. Well, the male chauvinist pigs basically got to celebrate a little bit. And they got to celebrate that for about 4 years. Because in 1988, Congress overturned a veto by President Reagan, my hero, President Ronald Reagan. Reagan basically vetoed to pass the Civil Rights Restoration Act. So the Restoration Act overturned that Supreme Court ruling in Grove City College versus Bell. Now, this new law that goes into effect states that any institution, not individual programs, but any institution that receives federal funds must comply with Title IX in all of its programs and activities. Let's chalk one up for the good guys, or gals in this case. So that, again, right after the most ridiculous setback of Title IX comes some reform in legislation that I would say legitimizes the sustainability of Title IX. All right, we're going to move ahead to 1991. Why is 1991 important in women's sports? Boy, this one, if you think about it, come on, Adam, you were 3. You must remember this one. Now, and all kidding aside, if you are a fan of women's sports, 1991 as a year is pretty significant. And the reason is the first ever soccer World Cup is held for women in China. And needless to say, if you remember, the U.S. beat Norway 2-1 in the final and begins what is arguably the most highly touted run in women's sports ever. I don't know if you guys ever saw that there was an HBO documentary on that dream team of girls with Mia Hamm and that whole crew. And it was amazing to watch, not just because I have a girl in my family who plays soccer, but it really was. It was one of the biggest momentum swings for gender equality in sports in the world, much less in this country. All right, let's move ahead 1 year, because when there are legal battles, guess what? It's only a matter of time before somebody sticks their hand out for a payday. And in 1992, in Franklin versus Gwinnett County Public Schools, the Supreme Court holds that plaintiffs may sue for monetary damages under Title IX. This is the first time that it is brought to light that you are allowed to sue for monetary damages under Title IX. Up until that point, basically you had to bring your complaints to an enforcement agency with regard to anything over Title IX. Adam, what do you think happened to the number of complaints to enforcement agencies versus the number of lawsuits once this came out?
It must have been pretty high.
The amount of complaints to enforcement agencies, I won't say went to zero, but it fell down dramatically. And yes, dramatically, equally so, if not more so on the other side of that equation, the increase in lawsuits looking for monetary damages went through the roof. Now, by the way, during the break, I got an email from, I'm going to read this, from Donna in Wilton. And Donna in Wilton says, "Hey, Coach Tony, here's something that puzzles me. It seems that moms are only recently getting heavily involved in sports and gender equality issues. Isn't it kind of ironic that in the earlier days of Title IX, it seems most of the litigation and fighting came from men? Why has it taken so long for women to step it up and represent for the cause?" Hey, Donna, that's a good one. Very interesting question. And quite frankly, I don't know if there's a concrete answer. But you know what? Take a step back and look at this logically for just a second. What do we know about the early days of Title IX? We know that it came into play in 1972. So what do we know about the early days of Title IX, and more importantly, the roles of, let's just say, moms and dads at that time? I'll shortcut it for you, because this one's too long to ask anyone to chime in. I'm just going to give you my opinion on this one, but hear me out. I believe that coming from sports backgrounds gave fathers an appreciation for what sports can do for a kid, male or female. Okay? Now, during that period, or more importantly, during the period when those parents grew up, there really weren't nowhere near as many sports opportunities for girls. So guess what? A lot of those girls became moms during the 70s and simply just didn't have any sports experience. It's neither good nor bad. It just is what it is. And I got to tell you, this one strikes a little bit of a nerve, because I get into arguments all the time with my wife whenever I point out that because she does not have a sports background at all, I mean, if you ask her to throw a ball, it looks like she's having an epileptic fit. But in any event, whenever I point out that she's got a lack of experience in sports, and that's why I take a more proactive role in making sports-related decisions in our family, she goes bonkers. She hates it. But think about it pragmatically here, and this is all going back to Donna's email. It doesn't make Mrs. Hey Coach Tony bad or good. She simply lacks an experience set necessary to make solid judgments and decisions in the best interest of a child athlete. Like I said, not good, not bad. It just is what it is. So turn the clock back and think about how a mom back in those days who had zero sports experience or limited sports experience, how could she effectively fight the good fight? Listen, might not be the best answer. You might not like the way it sounds, but you know what? You got to admit, makes some sense, doesn't it? Adam, you can follow that one, right?
Yeah, I can follow that. I think that makes a lot of sense.
All right, I just needed somebody with some testosterone.
Yeah, don't worry,
in the studio.
I got you.
That one, as I started rolling that one out, I was afraid I was going to get some hate mail on that one. All right, but listen, you got something to say? 855 Hey Coach is the studio line. It's 855-439-2622. We were talking about how the advent of suing for monetary damages impacted the evolution of Title IX and gender equality. So in sticking with the almighty dollar, I want to move ahead to 1993. We're in the home stretch here. In 93, basketball coach Sonia Taylor sued Howard University for sex discrimination under Title IX in a D.C. Supreme Court, saying she was paid much less than her men's basketball counterpart. Not her male counterpart, even though I believe that was the case, but she coached women's basketball, and she was comparing her salary to the coach of the men's basketball program. Now, I think you can make a hell of an argument that you should pay the boys basketball coach more because I would assume in most cases it generates more revenue. But regardless, she receives the first monetary award given by a jury in a Title IX case of $2.4 million. That's a lot of scuttle. $2.4 million for complaining that she just wasn't getting paid as much as the guy who coached a more revenue-producing team. Don't know if that's good or bad, but again, think about it. Compare, with the exception of maybe Tennessee, and that's probably the only one because there are other top-flight women's basketball programs. But in Tennessee's case, they're more known for women's basketball than for men's basketball. So in any other case, you're talking about men's basketball producing much more revenue. And you could probably argue, if you've ever been a sales guy, you produce revenue, you get more money. But unfortunately, I just said unfortunately. Wow, I just sounded like a jerk. Fortunately or unfortunately, the D.C. Supreme Court didn't see it that way and awarded Sonia Taylor $2.4 million. All right. We are in the home stretch talking about gender equality and Title IX. When we come back from break, we're going to wrap it up. By the way, really disappointed nobody chimed in with this, and it was a layup. Adam, you care to guess how many times the word sports and or athletics appears in the original version of Title IX?
I'm going to say D, 0.
You are absolutely right.
Nice.
Title IX, while it is the most significant advancement in sports for women, was never intended to be a sports-related document. Very few people know that. Next time you're playing Trivial Pursuit. The word sports and athletics appear nowhere in the original version of Title IX. All right, when we get back, we're going to continue the timeline. We're going to wrap it up. You're listening to Hey Coach Tony. Stick around. I'll be right back.
Coach Tony.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. We're in the last segment here of Hey Coach Tony. I want to wish all the moms out there a happy Mother's Day weekend. I almost slipped up and did a Ralph Kiner. Want to wish all the moms a happy birthday. All right, by the way, one of our affiliates is WPUT 1510 AM in Brewster. Guess what? I'm heading over there. My son is playing in the high school baseball game at 11 o'clock this morning at Brewster High School. So if you're in the area and you see a guy who's dressed all in black, probably freezing his butt off because he didn't bring a jacket, that's me. So come over and say hi. Be more than happy to take a pie in the face. I was going to say sign autographs, but let's face it, most of you don't like me. Anyway, we're talking Title IX and gender equality this morning. And we just started talking about, paydays. Listen, Title IX is supposed to be about equality. But you think it's really about equality? Before you answer that one, check out what happened in 1994. Talk about opening up a can of worms. In 94, a U.S. Court of Appeals upheld a ruling in the University of Illinois, which had terminated its men's swimming program the year before. The men's program, all right? Members of that team sued on the grounds that the men were denied their equal opportunity. Adam, you want to guess what the result of that lawsuit was?
I'm guessing it didn't fly.
It did. Not only did it not fly, it crashed and burned. They lost that case. Now, again, Title IX clearly states equal opportunities for men and women. Now, this case, along with several other lawsuits around the same time, set precedent. And I don't know if the verbiage was actually changed, but it set precedent that men may not use Title IX to claim sex discrimination when their programs are cut for budgetary reasons. Not really all that fair and equal now, don't you agree? Well, all right. Let's fast forward a little bit more because we are in the home stretch here. How far did Title IX really take women's athletics? Well, let's fast forward to 1996. Women's softball, that's the year that women's softball and soccer became part of the Olympic program for the first time. Now, that year, the U.S. wins gold in both of those events as well as women's basketball. Now, why is this a milestone? Well, following the 96 Olympic Games, all three of those women's sports, basketball, softball, and soccer, debuted professional leagues, and women were finally getting paid to play professionally. That's pretty cool. It was a very important time. Now, I will tell you that, unfortunately, most of the leagues that were brought about at that, I think there were 4 leagues in total that were brought about in 96. I think only one of them is still in existence. But you know what? Good for them. You know, the bottom line is you got to have a good product and people got to be willing to pay for it. So I believe the WNBA is the only one that is still in existence where top players from around the world command tens of thousands of dollars to play their sports. Dude, I'm going to get fried for that one. I'm going to get fried for that one. All right. You know what? Let's forget about equality for a second. And let's talk about knocking down some real walls. All right. Now we're into the new millennium. It's 2002. New Mexico place kicker Katie Henida, and I'm probably saying that name wrong, but she became the first woman to appear in a Division 1A football game. 8 months later, she becomes the first woman to score in a Division 1A football game, kicking 2 extra points. You go, girl. That's a pretty big one. If you leave out the fact that she's a place kicker and just say that she became the first woman to score points in a Division 1A football game, sounds pretty cool. I should have left that out. All right. All right. Well, let's talk about this one. Will colleges ever learn? Just last year, 2011, in a lawsuit first filed in 2003 by 3 female wrestlers who were cut from UC Davis, a federal court found that the university failed to provide sufficient athletic opportunities for women. University settled with the women just this past February, paying more than $1.3 million. Now, again, I believe in equality for women. Like I said, I'm the father of 2 young athletes. But in this case, I don't know, maybe you could make a really strong argument that they got cut. Doesn't mean they didn't have an opportunity. You want to try out for wrestling? Great. You got cut. I'm not buying it that they were not given the opportunity there. So anyway, that was one. And the last one here, finally, the story that prompted me to revisit the whole Title IX issue is a bit of a surprise. Just a couple of weeks ago, in fact, Keeling Pillaro, a 13-year-old boy who was the top scorer on the girls' varsity field hockey team at Southampton High School last season on Long Island, was told by the governing body for sports in Suffolk County that he can no longer play with the girls because he's too dominant, even though he's smaller than most of the girls on the team. So again, equal opportunity for this kid. Last year, sure. Here's where they screwed up. They gave the kid the opportunity. They gave him the go-ahead to play on the girls' varsity field hockey team. Field hockey is apparently pretty big in Europe with men, but here in the States, you wear a dress or a skirt, and the boys are not going to participate. But this kid, I believe, is like Irish and grew up in Ireland or whatever it was. So he was a field hockey player, and that was the only opportunity he had to play. But again, you can't say it's okay in 2011, and then in 2012 say, well, we didn't realize you were going to be good, so you can't play anymore. You know, I got to tell you, take the bone out of your head, stick it in your back, and stand by your original decision. Or take the bone out of your head and stick a brain in it and make the right decision in the first place. If you don't want a boy playing, don't let him play. What was their hope? The kid will be, because he's smaller, he'll be weak, and so the girls can dominate him? Come on. There's a time and a place for women to dominate men. And by the way, the prices are going through the roof. Wow, that's another one. Wow, another one. Another inappropriate comment. All right. Another very cool thing to note about 2012, by the way, is that along with Title IX turning 40, so are three very, very prominent female athletes who both benefited from Title IX as well as significantly furthered its impact and its reach. Olympic gold medalists Lisa Leslie from basketball, Mia Hamm in soccer, and Summer Sanders in swimming all came into the world the very year that Title IX came into existence. And though there's going to be no big birthday party, these three women apparently share a bond nonetheless. And matter of fact, to quote Lisa Leslie, she says, I'd like to think I've made a difference, been a role model for other women athletes. She was a 3-time All-American at USC, and she won 4 Olympic gold medals and 3 WNBA MVP awards. So she says, I'd like to think I've made a difference, but to quote her, Title IX has made the biggest difference of all, and that certainly is the case. Now, Leslie, Hamm, and Sanders, they were basically born at the perfect time to take advantage of opportunities that the law helped to create. Now, like Leslie, Mia Hamm, she won 4 straight national championships at North Carolina, and Sanders, who won 6 individual NCAA titles at Stanford, they all used their athletic success and popularity to earn lucrative endorsement deals because, let's face it, like I said, they weren't getting paid a whole ton of money to do what they had to do. So hats off to these ladies. All right, listen, it's time to bash an ESPN person, and I got 5 minutes. So Adam, hit the music when you got to hit it. But I don't know if anyone was paying attention to Chris Carter. Chris Carter, the whole talk about bounties, etc., was a big bone of contention, and Chris Carter on the air basically said, if you're going to put a bounty out on me, I'm going to make sure that I am protected. He said it's a lot different when you talk about ending somebody's career. Well, bottom line is he made reference to, and why am I blanking? Adam, you can bail me out here. Who's the linebacker from the Broncos?
Bill Romanowski.
Romo. He said, Romanowski did it to me. He threatened to end my career. Well, as the story got thrust more into the limelight, Romanowski was actually interviewed, and he said, I never said anything. So they pushed Chris Carter. Chris Carter said, before the game, Romanowski said, you're going down. I'm coming to get you. Well, Chris Carter, you are connecting some pretty significant dots if you're going to take you're going down to mean he's threatening your career. I mean, sorry, and I'm a big Chris Carter fan. I think he's a terrific NFL analyst, but this guy clearly has an axe to grind with Romo because you know what? That's a wuss statement. I don't know if you disagree with that, Adam, or if you heard any of the interviews. Romanowski, if what he said is true, and let's assume it is, because Romanowski was, let's call it what it was, dirty player. He says you're going down. It takes a special kind of idiot to infer I'm going to end your career.
I don't get how you get I'm going to end your career
with a cheap shot. I'm coming after you. You got to be kidding me. And they were comparing Romanowski to the guys on the Saints. You know what nobody talked about, and I have 2 minutes to do it. There's a huge difference between a guy like Romanowski who made his living, put bread on the table, and established himself as an NFL personality based on his ability to rise to a level of intensity in the heat of the moment that very few people did. I genuinely believe Romanowski is not all there. His wires are not all connected, and he needed to be that way to play the way that he played. Now, there's a huge difference between someone like that and a guy like Jonathan Vilma or anybody else on the New Orleans Saints who was told far in advance, I'm going to pay you if you knock somebody out of the game and hurt them. Romanowski reacted. He spit in a guy's face. He punched a teammate. He did all those things. No question. All in the heat of the moment. The guys on the New Orleans Saints had time to strategize about who they were going to hurt and how they could potentially hurt them. And that is why Romanowski is the subject of some scrutiny, but Jonathan Vilma, work on your golf game, guy, because you got a lot of time to think about the stuff that you did. I mean, I cannot believe the way that whole thing went. And Chris Carter, instead of just saying, I guess I overreacted, he still has bile spewing out of his hole for Bill Romanowski. And I got to tell you, as an NFL fan, I loved Romanowski. He was fun to watch. And I was a Steelers guy, so I used to see more than my share of Romanowski. His level of intensity is what you want people to play with. Now, you like to think the guy could curb it a little bit, but Chris Carter, dude, take off your dress, man. You're going down does not mean I'm gonna end your career. Really, really pathetic. All right, listen, I hope I did some justice to Title IX and the evolution of gender equality in sports. If I didn't, well, I'm just a guy, and there's no excuse. But listen, I do want to say Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. We'll see you guys next week.